back, everyone, to our live coverage of the New Hampshire primary. We just heard from former President Donald Trump, who is celebrating with supporters tonight after winning the New Hampshire primary, beating his only remaining contender there, the former governor of South Carolina, Nikki Haley.
And the president has actually stepped aside off stage right now. Tim Scott is the person who's speaking up into New Hampshire. So good time to bring in John Keller and his two guests tonight. And John, we've been, and the former president just sort of made it a big issue talking about the spread in percentage points. He was saying at one point she walked out when it was only 7%. He walked out, it was closer to 15%. The numbers we just showed was more like 8%. So it feels like there is some importance not only to us but the candidates into sort of how wide of a margin there is in this.
Well, alongside Amy Carnevale, Chairman, Mass Republican Party, Steve Kerrigan, Chairman, Mass Democratic Party. Amy, what do you make of what you heard?
Yeah, so certainly Donald Trump wants to win by as wide of a margin as possible.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of speculation kind of coming into New Hampshire was that he wanted to win by double digits. So I will kind of put that out there and say I think he's looking to win by double digits, and they're looking at the number to see if they can do that. But again, you know, harken back to my earlier comment, a win's a win. The delegates will apportion accordingly. But certainly there is a lot of speculation.
I want to stay with you for 1 second. We'll get to you in a moment, Steve. We heard Nikki Haley say it earlier. We've heard others say it. Joe Biden has hinted at it, that Donald Trump is the matchup he wanted. What do you make of that? Do you believe that, first of all?
I actually do believe it. I do believe it. I think certainly he knows his opponent with Donald Trump, so it'll be if that proves true and Trump wins the nomination, essentially a rematch. So, you know, we'll know what to expect.
Steve, is that true, that this is what the Biden people want?
I don't know. I mean, certainly, it's interesting. The former president had a line that I thought was fantastic in his speech where he said, I mean, who can't beat Biden these days? He can't. He didn't.
Some polls have him beating Biden.
But he didn't. When they were on the ballot
4 years ago.
Yeah,
That's
sure,
right.
yeah. And what was very clear is the Trump of old is the Trump of new. He walked out, immediately told several lies, and it's clear Nikki Haley really got under his skin. Because what I heard was, in between his MC act of his Veep stakes of interviewing different VP candidates on stage, he also decided to go directly at Chris Sununu and the independents in New Hampshire. This is the state he needs to win. He didn't win the last 2 times he's run for president, even though he just said he did. He needs to win that state in November, and he is spending his grudge match speech, which is what his entire campaign is about, is grudges, attacking Nikki Haley for the timing of her speech. It's called a tactic. It worked, and it worked even better because it got right under his skin and took a prime time moment for him to talk to the American people about the leadership he wanted to bring to this country, and instead he decided to just spend the time kicking in the teeth of a very strong candidate for president.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll jump in and just say, look, it's clear the primary is still live. It's still a competitive primary, and the fact that he's talking about Nikki Haley is the fact that he sees the competition continuing. So if I was Nikki Haley in that position, frankly, I'd see the campaign is still active.
Look, if I'm Nikki Haley, I am popping champagne on whatever plane she's on right now because he sees her as a far bigger threat than we thought he did before. He thought he should have been coronated and everyone should get out of his way, like Vivek Ramaswamy and Tim Scott and Ron DeSantis did. And how dare she stay in that race?
He also talked about President Biden too, so it's clear that he's thinking ahead to November as well.
Well, wouldn't Democrats prefer that Dean Phillips, Marianne Williamson pack up and go home? So
hey, look, they're going to run their process, and we're going to run our process. Ours will end up with Joe Biden running a campaign that talks about the future of this country and not talking about being a dictator on day one, mass deportations, and frankly going after his enemies by weaponizing the Department of Justice that he accused us of doing.
So,
go ahead, Amy.
You know, and I would say our campaign will talk about what our voters' concerns, top concerns, the economy and immigration.
Absolutely.
We'll see where the voters...
Since we're talking about margins, let's just take a moment and talk about the Democratic vote tonight. Last time I checked, incomplete results, but Dean Phillips was pulling 20% of the vote, an obscure former congressman. Is that an embarrassment for Joe Biden, Steve?
No. Joe Biden's name's not on the ballot.
Well, they're writing him in. Everyone knows
Sure, yeah.
what it's
No,
all
it's not an
about.
embarrassment. No.
He ran specifically
ran-
as a vehicle for criticism, voter discontent with Joe Biden.
Of both of the top candidates for president, yeah. I mean, he ran the campaign he felt he needed to run. Clearly, there's a discontented group of people out there who voted for him, and that's perfectly their right. I don't believe that's going to be replicated across the country. I think Dean Phillips will face the same fate that most folks have. He'll run out of time and he'll run out of money.
Joe Biden can't afford to lose 20% of the Democratic base in November, can he?
Well, you assume that losing them to Dean Phillips now means you're going to lose them in
No,
November.
I'm just asking.
I just think going after
anything.
the incumbent Republican governor of New Hampshire, whose father was governor and I think brother was governor, if not at least just senator.
Yeah.
I think it just seems like bad planning for November. But hey, look, I'm not advising Donald Trump's campaign and never would.
A quick final word from you, and then I'm going to throw it back.
Yeah, so I would just agree. The fact that he's losing nearly a quarter of the votes to other candidates, and you're in the incumbent president, I think is telling that perhaps your message isn't resonating as well as.
I mean, his name wasn't on the ballot, so let's be very clear. He's not losing to them.
I'm sensing an area of
Is not
disagreement
losing,
there.
yeah.
Before things get out of hand, I'm going to throw it back over to David and Lisa.
I gotta say, we've been enjoying this, though. Very lively conversation, good points of view, valuable for our viewers. Thanks to all of you.
I feel like I'm at Thanksgiving dinner.
I like
Things
it.
are getting-
I kind of like it.
Things are getting uncomfortable, and not even any wine.
Not that bad.